Welcome to Protect, Suicide Prevention Training Podcast for Healthcare Professionals. I'm Manan, Consultant Psychiatrist, Founder, and Head of Faculty at Progress Guide. Good day to our listeners on the Protect podcast. Today we have a guest with us, John Bell. John lost his son in 2020 to suicide. He was 15 years old and his name was Jake. John coped with a lot of mental trauma of this experience and he took time out in the mountains. He has an army background and he used his army training to push himself physically. And it was in an effort to balance the psychological storms he was going through. In this way, John was able to build up his resilience and find a new place of peace, an approach which he is passionate about sharing with others. John was introduced to me by another one of our previous podcast guests, Paul Vittles, who spoke highly of John. And from the moment I've heard about the walks he has undertaken, reaching out for hope and spreading awareness of suicide prevention, I thought I have to speak to John on the podcast. In 2023, he and a co-founder, I'm assuming, Chris, who is also on the Chair of Trustees, they co-founded Walking for Hope with family members and friends so that others in similar situations could discover coping strategies and ways of being for themselves. John treasures the love he will always have in his heart for Jake. This gives him the drive to do all in his power to be alongside young people, families, and bereaved parents who are all contending with their own struggles, helping them to reap the benefits of spending time outdoors and building their own resilience through nature. Welcome, John.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on here, man, as well. It's an absolute pleasure. I think it's so important from what I've learned from my own grief journey to share this with the world. I've learned to sort of develop a lot of not so much come through the dark side of it all, but learn to sort of utilize that darkness to see more light in life, really, to be honest with you, and find a way to make myself be a better person. I've sort of learned that Jake lives on in my heart now, which I do talk of quite a lot, because I think it's very important. So it makes me want to develop love and compassion for myself. Do you know what I mean? I've been quite hard on myself through my entire life, and then this sort of pain and suffering is like no other. It's absolutely crazy. So I like to make it a nice place for him, and it helps me cultivate loving kindness to be a better person for myself, and then to spread more hope and give others more hope, basically. Just to touch on one thing there, you mentioned about the son dying to suicide. I mean, it's such a complex subject. I think as human beings, we overcomplicate sometimes, and with mental health, we overcomplicate it. It can be simplified more. The more we overcomplicate things, the more complex it becomes. I mean, officially, Jake did die of an accident. I'm not going to go into the details of all that. It's just not fair on other people that are grieving in their own way as well. So, yeah, no, it's absolutely amazing to be here. Thank you for having me, and I hope that I can share a few things from my own grief journey that's ongoing now, and hopefully provide hope to others out there as well, that they can be more than what they suffer.
Thank you, John, for that clarification, because I think the courts are, they have their own standards by which they decide what is a suicide and what is not. And often they want to be towards the families of the bereaved, and they talk about accidental suicide or accidental death. But that is, so yes, thank you for that clarification. So, and also I should mention, John, it takes a lot of courage to do the work you're doing. And please, if I end up, there are two worries that I have. One is I don't want to go anywhere which opens up any wounds, because I'm really appreciative of the time that you've taken. And I appreciate that it's not just you, your entire family as well. So if I veer into territory which is, which can cause anyone any kind of sadness, please just steer me clear. Happy. I'll take your steer on that. And also sometimes I find that the psychiatrist inside me gets curious and I start asking questions in a way which as if it's a clinical interaction. It's not. I forget that I'm hosting a podcast. So if that happens, just tell me, hey, come, cool your jets. Like we don't. It's so sometimes I just get curious and I start asking questions. So
that's fine. That's fine.
Please feel free to just kind of direct me. So one of the things that really struck me from one of your posts, John, was where you kind of mentioned putting one step in front of another, just taking a step at a time. And you have done some pretty interesting, amazing things, particularly walking in nature. Could you tell us, could you perhaps start with that, share with what you have been doing in Walking for Hope? I think that would be a good starting point for us.
With the charity or the sort of the build up to the charity, where do you want me to start this?
Mark, you start with the build up. That would be
okay.
Yeah.
I'll summarize the build up because it's quite a lot that I've done out there, that some that I haven't even spoken about. Basically, the first year since losing Jake, when I took myself out, I didn't want to be around people. When I think sometimes it's so easy for us as human beings to start blaming external factors quite a lot in life for how we feel, and we can take control more. I've learned this as time goes on. We can take control more over our own emotions and how we feel, instead of blaming someone else for how we feel. People are always going to do unkind things, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? It's always going to be a thing based on their perceptions. They probably don't even know they're doing it. So I took myself away from the world, from people. And I spent the first year in quite a dark place, and took myself into the mountains. I even stepped down from senior management at work to work different hours to accommodate this. And I mean, I'm gonna say it straight out because I know it's a dark sort of place it comes from. And I spent every single day in the outdoors, because I didn't want to be. I didn't know how to live without my son. I spent every single day planning my own death, to the point I even set an end game, which was going up Everest. When I got obsessed with outdoors, it was good for me, but then I couldn't live without Jake and things. And I'd set an end game to go up there with his ashes and become one of the markers on Everest. This is during 2020, throughout the entire first year of losing Jake. Yeah, I found a lot of solace in the outdoors, and I mean, apart that put aside to me feeling suicidal myself, the only thing that was stopping me was everybody else that's going to suffer, my entire family, my other children, and creating that ripple effect, which is huge with suicide. So I did a lot of soul searching to stay, a lot of soul searching and questioning everything, all my learnt behaviour, going back. And I found traumas that I never knew I had in there, and I just made myself deal with them without any counselling on that side of things. And I threw myself straight into the pit of darkness and just came out loving that darkness to a certain degree, because I know if there's that amount of darkness, is that equal amount of light. And I know the choice. I know it's a choice. It's we don't have to sit there. I think it's a bottomless pit when we talk about it. I think that's a massive bottomless pit. So I took a lot of solace in the outdoors, and I think the more you look into it.
So I don't want to lose this point, that I think it's a really important point you're making about loving the darkness. And this is something that a lot of people who are struggling with life challenges have mentioned to me, that there is something about the I don't know, there's something about the misery of the present which is known compared to the anxiety of hope. Like this is something that people have mentioned to me, that they know that there is hope, they know that, but it's all unknown, and that is quite unnerving for them. Whereas although the darkness is quite miserable, it is known, it is familiar. And somehow there is comfort, even if in the misery of the familiarity, than kind of charting into unfamiliar stuff. So when you were saying that's something that kind of, it resonates with things that people who are struggling to see the point of living have actually mentioned to me before. So that's quite interesting. You ending up loving that darkness, and kind of, and it sounds like you were almost making plans of how you might end it all.
Oh, yeah, every single day. I'd sort myself out of it every day. Yeah. I made my peace. I made my peace with a lot of things. I made my peace with death. I think that's so important to be at peace with yourself. Because I mean, I went back so far thinking, what if I'd not smacked Jake's bottom when he was 2 years old, etc. Would he still be here now? You do all the what ifs, don't you? And no matter what, I mean, everything we do, I believe, is a contributing factor. It doesn't mean that things are our fault. Things can happen anyway. But it's, I think when you question yourself when you go inside yourself that much and question yourself, you want to make sure that your contributing factors in life are positive, more positive. Do you know what I mean? And you can't forget your own sort of mental health at the same time with this. But I've achieved a state of happiness and joy inside my heart. I mean, I consider myself
Sorry
fortunate.
again. Let's not lose this really important point that you're taking. This soul searching, the endless asking of questions, going back to the time when Jake was 2 and thinking, what if that didn't happen? And will this? And a lot of parents do that in that space, that they end up questioning everything. And I know, as a professional, having lost patients to suicide, we also do a lot of that what if questions. What if we did this and what if we did that? With the benefit of hindsight, questioning every little aspect of things that might have happened. So
this is a psychiatrist coming out of you now, delving further into that dark. You can delve in. You can delve in there. I love my life. I love who I am. I love who I've become, and that has come from a place of darkness and love as well. So I think I'm happy to talk about it as much as you want to delve in there. To be fair, I think people understanding this and understand. I think everybody to be able to understand themselves and their own emotions, so that they are not. I truly believe every single one of us on this planet are vulnerable to suicidal thoughts. And it's difficult to admit that to ourselves at times, but it's and then they might not think they are, and then it's that impulsive decision, and that's it. There's no coming back from that, is there? Do you know what I mean? And this, like I say, I love the fact of the darkness, that it's there. It's always there. The suffering's always there. This is when you look into I mean, I've looked into quite a lot of the Buddhism and Zen way, and that's helped me massively, because that's all about just becoming at peace with yourself as well. And I just think that's so important. If you can be one of my favourite, but no disrespect, but one of my favourite guys on podcasts is a guy called David Goggins as well, and learned a lot from listening to that guy. And I understood him, and as soon as somebody introduced me to him, because it's got to come from a place of sort of darkness to a certain degree. When you understand yourself that much, we try to understand other people, and we want to even change other people to meet what we expect from them. So we develop expectations in life, and we expect far too much from other people, and we shouldn't do that. People should do because they want to do. If you expect from people, that's going to put them on the back foot straight away, and it's going to add to a massive decrease in other people's mental health decreasing as well. So they get I just really think we shouldn't expect from each other at all. You go inside yourself and you learn more. And Carl Jung talks about this, about is it the dark shadow of the soul? Is it you refer to it? It's a shadow self, isn't it? Which is sort of the other side to the ego.
Sorry, I derailed you. So you were talking about soul searching. A lot of what if questions. What if this happened? What if that happened? Is there a message that you might want to give to parents who are looking after teens in that space? With the wisdom of today, not like obviously Jake passed away, but those who, because this is something we often hear from parents or even spouses. What did I do wrong? Why was my love not enough? So, is there a message that you would want to get? Does it help? Does it hinder in that kind of soul searching, particularly when you are supporting someone who hasn't passed away? Like say.
Do you know what? I feel quite fortunate myself. I've had a background of military, prison service, all sort of those type of jobs where I've developed coping mechanisms. I think if you're not careful, confronting your darkness, I think you need to have professionals there when you're going to confront stuff like. So if you do find traumas you're not ready to deal with yet, it's so important you have got that support there as well. I mean, I just threw myself in the deep end, and I think I'm quite lucky that I managed to fight through that and learn to live with it as well. That's the important thing, learning to live with it and still develop compassion for yourself. But I just think, yeah, this is why when you did want to ask about this, it does intrigue the human mind in general, not just yourself being a psychiatrist, in how somebody in my position can experience so much joy still and feel that much love. It's something that we all want to question, but if you went inside into understanding this more, you've got to be ready to deal with some demons of your own. And I think you need to be looking at having therapists and the professionals on standby there. If you have got a lot of trauma to deal with, don't just do it by yourself. I know it's difficult. There will come a point where I think the only thing is for us to understand ourselves, because other people have got all their own problems, and this is where the double-edged sword is with everything, isn't it? We become a burden. We feel we're a burden, don't we? And you're back and forth, and this is a double-edged sword with suicide. I think
so. There's a key message. There's a key message I think you're giving, that doing this by oneself is incredibly difficult. It takes a lot of courage to engage in this kind of soul searching. And sometimes when someone is going through a really difficult patch in their life, you need someone to work with you, someone who is a professional. John, of course, has got a military background, has worked in the prison service, has got a lot of coping skills, and he has managed to get through this. Everyone hasn't got all of that kind of training, those coping skills, and doing this by itself, very difficult. Takes the courage to open up, but open up to a therapist or a professional who might be able to guide you through these difficult, challenging times. If you've lost a loved one, or someone has made an attempt and you're supporting them, and you are doing a lot of soul searching yourself, very important to get support for yourself. Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I think for parents though to understand this a little bit better. I mean, we can. I think the same sort of guideline on average. It takes about 5 generations, give or take, before somebody in a family realizes that somebody needs to be a cycle breaker. We subconsciously pass our own traumas on to our own children. So I think a good message to parents is don't always think you know what is best for your child. We can tend to talk to them from like a parent perspective of where they're opened up. So let's say they are feeling bad, they're potentially feeling suicidal, they might not have opened up about that yet, or they have done, and then it's quite easy to sort of try and think we're doing good for them by explaining something from an experience of ours and how we sort of dealt with it, but making our experience probably sound more traumatic in some way, because we all feel as human beings what we suffer is more than anybody else's. It's in here, it's us feeling it. So it's like, and we can quite easily dismiss other people's suffering. And it might be, I've always described it as, you might have a child that's broken the favourite cup. Now, to most parents that have lost a child, this might sound quite sort of, what are you talking about there? Do you know what I mean? But I've lost my son. I can wake up every morning and I can sit in that woe is me attitude thinking, oh, my son's no longer here. I've had to learn to cultivate a relationship with him still. You can have a child that's broken a mug, and I don't know, right? That kid, that could be the worst thing that child's ever felt. They're 4 or 5 years old and they're attached to it because they haven't seen the dad, and the dad got or something. Do you know what I mean? We can't dismiss other people's suffering. Well, we can, but that's your choice, and I don't think we should do. We don't think we should do at all. You're not absorbing someone else's problems, so it adds to your own. It's just not dismissing them and thinking what you have to say is more. Like now, even in a podcast, how many times do you sit in a conversation and you can see through people's body languages when they're listening to you talking? You can see with a lot of people, they're usually just waiting for you to finish talking so they can talk about what they want to talk about. And we do this, we dismiss each other so much in life, and we need to recognize each other, we need to recognize ourselves, we need to recognize each other more.
So taking time to listen to each other. Yeah. All right, let's go back to where we were. 2020, you were going through a dark place, you were doing a lot of soul searching, you were asking a lot of what if questions, and then what happened?
Well, I've sort of reached a point where I fully made my peace with death after sort of setting an end game and looking forward to that, taking solace in the fact that I was going to be reunited with my son. But I've learned that he's here with me at all times, and so that time's not to come yet. So, and it's, I can deal with this amount of suffering. I've learned that. So I've learned that I can push myself more. I can challenge my limitations. I don't even know what my limits are yet. So I took up extreme hiking, really. Extreme hiking. I'm not, people think I'm sort of physically fit. I'm not. I go off pure mindset. The physical fitness just catches up. I don't sort of the physical side of pain that comes with extreme hiking, which I spent now a good year or two sort of doing. Well, I still do it now, but my body's growing, my mind's growing. I wake up each morning and I develop a positive mindset to make a choice to get up, despite every night. Every night since I lost Jake, right, man, I live this, so I know this is exactly true. There's not one night I have not struggled going to bed. It can get better sometimes, but there's always a little struggle somewhere, more than some days worse than others. Because I know that in the morning I've got to wake up and go through that feel sorry for me, woe is me attitude, and realise my son's not here anymore every single day. I had such a bond with Jake. I wanted him to be everything I couldn't be, and this is why I think I want to strive to be a better person now. So I want to become the sort of as best person I can, because this is what I wanted from my son and my other children as well. My son's no longer here, so if I can set that example and help others to be inspired, and that's what's happening here. I have to inspire myself every morning to get up and make that choice and do something about it. So the physical pain of doing these challenges is not a problem for me at all, because it comes from a place there's a place you can dig deep into and go that little bit extra, like most military people will, because they sort of break them in training and things. But there's somewhere else now, and
that extreme hiking that you were doing was causing physical pain. Yes, your body was growing all the time as you were going through it. Was that kind of as a way of, I don't know, numbing the emotional pain, or kind of putting it?
Not really. It didn't numb it. It made everything real. I felt alive. I felt so alive. I challenged myself in the mountains in the UK in different areas, and it made me feel like I needed to feel alive, man. Do you know what I mean? I needed to feel alive. And I just learned so much about myself and my own capabilities. We're comfortable. We're far too comfortable in life, most of us. We've evolved into, how fortunate are we, no matter how big your house is or anything. But I mean, most of us are fortunate enough to have things that you go back hundreds of years. The people didn't have what we've got now. We're quite lucky, despite all the complications of the debts and things and that people acquire because of how life's gone, and they're sort of pushed into becoming in debt because I'm not going to get into that side of things, you know what I mean? But there's those sort of complications, and we don't know how to get out there and learn to develop that mindset as easy to learn more about ourselves, you know what I mean? And we're comfortable to the point where, and David Goggins talks about this 40% rule, like you've got a governor on your brain. I think it's fantastic how he explains this. So most human beings will get to about 40% and we'll give up. And you know, when you push yourself past these limitations and you test yourself and your own capabilities, you start developing self-worth. You start understanding yourself better and understanding your emotions. And it's, you know, have you heard of the Yorkshire Three Peaks? I mean, it's compared to probably some of the mountains all over the world, the Yorkshire Three Peaks is a bit of a challenge for most people. I mean, I've learned that I enjoy it. I love it. I go out and do the Yorkshire Three Peaks for the first time, and everybody sacked it off. And I was probably one of the only ones on the mountain that day because it forecast torrential rain, sideways hailstone, about 2 meters visibility. I'm 700 meters up above sea level, and I'd never believed in a god or anything like that. So please forgive me. Never been spiritual. I think I'm more spiritual than a lot of people now with this relationship I've got. I've been up there 700 meters high, screaming to whatever deity's up there, whatever deity anybody believes in, whatever's there, is that the best you've got? Do you know what I mean? I pushed myself into positions like that to help build a stronger mindset, and I love that. I love that now. My mindset is becoming so resilient and so strong. We're so vulnerable. And I want to live longer. Despite I spent a year being suicidal, I want to live longer so I don't add to that ripple effect. I don't want to add to the ripple effect of suicide. I want to be an example that we can be more than what we suffer.
I don't think any of us can even begin to conceptualize how much strength it takes. I'm a father of a 15-year-old, and if Jake were alive today, he would have been 18, 19, and I've got a daughter who's 18. And I can't even begin to imagine what life without them would be like. So for you to come along and actually talk in this way, that, pushing the limits of what you do and developing a positive mindset, and what I think Paul Vittles he called post-traumatic growth in people.
I love that word. I love that word.
That's something that kind of brings, which was, these strengths were all inside you, but what adversity did was it forced you into dig deep and kind of dig into that fortitude and find that fortitude, and going onto the mountains and shouting out, "Is this the worst you have got?" Yeah.
I actually like to go out in worse conditions now, because I know I'll just put everything into it. Because I've got my son in my heart. My son's not died to me. He lives through me. I feel him. The more difficult it begins, it feels like he's coursing through me. Every ounce of love I've got for my son runs through my veins every day.
Yeah, like I'm not in your shoes, Sean. So I'll never be able to work out. The curious part of me, as I said, the psychiatrist wants to work out, God, was John, taking on the elements in that way? Was that part of him being suicidal, and he couldn't care whether he lived or died? Or is there
was an element of that, I think, at one point, but I sort of I come through that side of it all, and it's like, wow, it's special. Some of the challenges, sort of like the Welsh 3000 challenge in under 24 hours, 15 Welsh Ice Mountains. Some of the guys that did it with me, as much as they did enjoy it and stuff like that, the joke about, don't need to do it again now. That's it. I want to go and do it again. I want to try it twice. I want to try it 3 times back and see. I can stay awake for a good 48 hours. When you've been there, when you've been awake in the hospital, because Jake was alive on the machines for a couple of days, and I didn't want to sleep for 2 days. And you feel his last heartbeat as the machines go off. It just changes everything about you, and I feel like I think I've been broken in a way that we don't ever want to be broken. So I've had to rebuild myself. I continue to rebuild myself. If I'm honest, and I know this sounds corny and things like that, but I feel like I've been reborn with an opportunity to do something good with this, because I could have just become a statistic out there. I really could have just become a statistic and actually taken my own life, and that would have caused an even bigger ripple effect. And when you establish, this is the other thing, when you establish, and this can be a bit of a sad thing, I'd be so careful how I word things, man, because it's important, I think, to learn to speak appropriate about this. Now, Ryan's given me a platform, so to speak. So it's gone global with what Ryan shared.
Sorry.
And I think
would you, just for our listeners who don't know,
could you
give a little bit of context about Deadpool and what
of course,
in that space, so people understand when you talk.
So
Ryan
basically, in December last year, we wanted a friend of mine carries a fridge up and down mountains. He's done Kilimanjaro, and I thought it was brilliant. It's got a visual representation of that weight there. I wanted something ludicrous myself. Obviously, I didn't want to just steal someone else's idea. So we sat in a pub after one of the walks and that with the group, and for some reason, someone said a bath, and I boom, a load of things clicked. I'm thinking of me cutting the hole out of a bath, wearing this bath with a basic harness system, and let's get some ducks on there, some nice colourful ducks, and people can sponsor them and have the names of their lost loved ones to suicide on there. Let's have a flag with the photos on, smiling faces. These people still live on through us. So I now carry a 15-kilogram real bath up and down mountains. But there was an element I want to throw in there that it was, how can we incorporate Jake's favourite character here? Because everybody knows Jake loves Deadpool, and people have bought me little gifts for Jake's shelves and memorable shelves. I love Deadpool as well, but Jake was just the crude sort of adult humour of it as a 15-year-old boy. Do you know what I mean? And he found it so funny. He's a cheeky guy. So I dressed as my son's favourite character, Deadpool. So possibly some of your listeners might have seen this already, that I did a big walk to Wrexham, 140 miles in 7 days, carrying this bathtub. And it's a visualization, this bath is, of the burdens you don't see. But when I take it up mountains, it's those calculated steps. It becomes more and more relevant to when we're dealing with mental health issues. And this is where I want to be an example of being able to come through our traumas and suffering. We can be more. And this is where you said it at the beginning of this podcast. All I have to do, Manan, is show up and put one foot in front of the other. That's the easy part for me, because I love every step I take. Every step is calculated, thought through. I become hyper focused. And my wife laughs at me. When I'm on the mountain, I become one with the mountain. It's ever so, I know that sounds corny as well. I'm connected to the world. I'm connected to myself and that love for my son, and I love being outdoors. So Ryan Reynolds got in touch. He sort of sent me a message on Twitter and started following me on Twitter and TikTok, and he invited me to meet him for an interview through the big world tour of the new Deadpool film. And there's a video on my YouTube, so if anyone wants to see that, it's John Bell at Walking for Hope, and it's for the number 4 as well for the charity. So you can see the video on my YouTube there as well. And you know what? The support's amazing.
YouTube. Yeah, I'll put the links to the YouTube video when the podcast goes out, and I'll definitely recommend seeing it. And you'll kind of get a sense of what John is talking about. This is not a lightweight plastic bathtub. It is actually a really big bathtub which he carries around, and I think it's a really nice symbolic representation of the weight that he's there now, whether that be the weight of love of Jake that he carries around, or the emotional pain that he's doing. We don't know. We can all keep guessing as to what he's doing. But he comes across as this guy who has got a bathtub, and people are talking to him, and he's there raising awareness around suicide prevention and reasons for living, and those calculated steps. I don't know how on earth you must be super, super fit to do what you do with that bathtub on the mountains, walking on those mountains. You can't even see your feet and where your feet are landing. So I don't know. I just don't know how you do it.
It took a lot of conditioning. I've done Ben Nevis and Snowdon with it as well, and on you've got rocky steps like this sort of thing, and it's.
And the bathtub protrudes in front of you and to the back.
Yeah.
So I don't know how you turn left or right in those kind of narrow spaces, or you can't see where your feet are going.
I have a lot of spatial awareness. It's other people when they stand next to me, and I have to tell people before we set off, you're going to feel an urge to grab the bath and support me when we're going up rocky steps. Please don't do that, because they don't. Some of the guys have learned how to support me better, and if you grab the bath, I've got my balance set with it. It's like it's a part of me. Do you know what I mean? It's important. I take a lot of pride putting that bath on. I take it very seriously. I taking those steps and carrying, it's more than my son now for me. I've got my son in here. It's about everybody else's children now for me, and about everybody in general. We can become so self-destructive if we're not careful, and suicide. Do you know what I mean? It's learning to deal with our own emotions.
So just for our listeners, please don't try this. John's a professional. He has been carrying this bath up on mountains. Please don't try anything like this. You heard him say it needs a lot of conditioning, but it is pretty amazing, and most importantly, it draws people attention to what you are doing, which I think is the point of it, is that kind of raising that awareness. So, John,
can I tell you a little story? So one of those sort of I wanted to test myself and see how many miles I could do in one day, and I did it as I wanted. I saw that there's a company called 21 Laps Productions that produced the Deadpool film, so I thought that with the old Deadpool theme and everything as well, my son loved him so much. What can I do 21 laps of? And I've got a local route near me, and it worked out. I did 51 miles in a 24-hour period carrying the bathtub. Started at 10 past midnight, finished at just shy of 10 past 10 at night in the same day, and did that on the day of Jake's funeral. But what was important was it's not about the fundraising or anything like that for me. That becomes something that naturally happens, and if it happens, it happens. I don't expect, back to the expectations, I don't expect, people have got all their own stuff to be funded, haven't they? But what was important that night at 2:00 in the morning, luckily I had two friends with me, because we were walking around a reservist place, no housing estates or anything unless you go off the reservist place. And we heard someone sounded drunk and shout, and we're like, oh my God, what we've got to deal with here. And me working in security all my life, naturally, the side of me came out, and then all of a sudden he shouted, "Identify yourself." We're like, "Oh God, what's going on?" Forgive me using Lord's name in vain. Sorry. So we approached him, and he didn't even, he was so drunk he didn't even acknowledge the fact I was dressed as Deadpool wearing a bath, and and it's yeah. So and he ended up walking with us for a lap, and then he's like, "Oh, I've seen you on telly," and stuff. It's so funny. So he recognised I was wearing a bath, and I was dressed as Deadpool then, and he actually just come straight out with it. It's like, and the ludicrousness of it and how it gets people talking is fantastic. That's a brilliant side to it. It's sort of ingenious, ludicrous, isn't it? He told us that night that he said his father fall out with his partner, with his missus, and is in a bad way himself. And he told us that he was contemplating, he didn't want to be here that night as well. And I'm going to go in a minute. I'm going to get sound. And he said, "You guys are tonight," and he walked with us for a laugh. And he went, he said, "I've got to go. I'm in jeans. I want to walk all the laps with you. I want to go." He'd been over in, he'd got PTSD. I'm not going to go into details. It's his demons he's dealing with, isn't it? And he basically went back, and he'd managed to change his jeans, come back. It's like, she wouldn't believe me that I've been walking with Deadpool in the bath. I said, "I'm not surprised. Why would she believe you?" And he ended up they were doing another lap with us, and he come back further in the day with his missus, and they'd made up, and it was absolutely fantastic. But this guy telling us that he was having those thoughts and didn't want to be here, and was thinking about it tonight, and he says, "You guys have saved me," and that's what it's about, man. That's exactly what it's about right there.
That is an incredibly touching story, actually. You know, like, it's intervention right there, you know, through a conversation. And often, I'm actually lost for words, which is a rarity. Let me tell you that. I can talk to a wall as well. But it's the fact that you're able to connect while you are walking. You know, this reminds me of there was a World Psychiatric Congress in Berlin going back a few years, I think 2017, and there was this elderly gentleman who was sitting alone. He looked like Gandalf. He had a big white beard, and he was sitting alone all by himself, and he looked quite alone and lonely. So, as is my nature, I just kind of went and started up a conversation. And he was a healer from Greenland, right? So we don't get to, in the world of psychiatrists, we don't get, and we had an entire 1 hour conversation about how things are in Greenland. And he was talking about how they treat depression, anxiety, even psychosis through walking, right? So they say that, you know, like, if someone is quite unwell, we just walk and talk. And there's something in the process of walking and talking, which is quite healing. And your directions are aligned. You're walking in the same direction, and you're conversing. You are there for each other. Nobody's a leader or a follower. You know, you're just walking together. And sometimes we could spend hours of walking, and we are silent, but we are still there. We are in each other's life, sharing the same place in time, you know, and there is something about our presence in their life, which is healing. In our suicide prevention training, we'll talk a lot about relational safety, you know, like safety created by the scaffolding of knowing that someone is in my life who genuinely does care about me. And what this kind of Greenlandic healer was telling me is that there's something in giving time and place.
Really sorry. My wife's a nightmare for ordering packages. I'm just going to tell him to leave it on the doorstep.
There you go. This is in real time.
My wife's a very well established mural artist. She travels the country doing big murals in schools, and she's forever having to order things. And
all right,
and
okay. Well, we're getting a glimpse of your life as well. So while you are not walking the mountains, you are collecting packages for your missus. So
it's school holidays. I've got the kids upstairs, and I balance a job with all this as well. You know, I work 3 days a week, so I've dropped to part time.
Yes.
It's I've got the balance good though.
Yeah. So, John, if there was kind of messages, like let's say this is 2024, so with all the wisdom you have of today, right?
Yeah.
What you have gone through, what would be a message you will give to the John Bell of 2020 who had just lost his beloved son? What would be a message that you would have given that John Bell who was in the depths of despair and darkness?
Mm. I think as a parent and things, I think I think it comes back to sort of the expectations, and when I'd spoken earlier about the traumas we can pass on subconsciously and things. I think we need to. I think it's important for parents and for me to say this to myself, like I said back then, that to not think that we know what's best all the time for our children. They are going to be different than us, and to make to sort of we think we know what's best, don't we, naturally for our children, based on, and that's all based on our own learned behaviours. So this is where we can pass the traumas on if we're not careful. Allow them to be themselves. I'd want to, and I think I did this with Jake. I think just to be there for him. And you know what? I don't think I weren't there for him. But just listen more myself. And I've been like a large part of the population where I'm that wrapped up in my own sort of bubble. And we do. It's natural, isn't it? I just wish I'd learned what I've learned now. I don't consider it's a difficult one, this, for me, because I don't consider myself, because you're asking me to talk to myself previously and give myself advice. And this
so
is
let's perhaps make it a little bit. So let's split the advice into two halves. So the advice when, like, I don't know the circumstances of Jake passing away, but before Jake passed away, so when you might have been supporting Jake, so we could look at advice then, but we could also look at advice after Jake passed away and when you were in that really dark space doing a lot of soul searching. So whichever one you want to begin with, it's a tough question because we live life forward. We don't live life with the benefit of hindsight, but given we now have got the benefit of hindsight, what might you have told John Bell, who was supporting Jake at that time? And it sounds like you are saying, take time to listen. Your life is your life. His life is his life. Everyone is different. Your story may or may not apply to them. Don't impose what you have gone through onto that other person and expect them to be the same and respond in the same way. Am I getting that right?
Yeah. I'll tell you what. I mean, I've just while you were just saying that as well, I just sort of revamped it a bit in my head, and I think he was very boisterous. Every child's different. In my situation, Jake was very boisterous, very much like me, very impulsive. He's always a class clown. Wanted people to like him, and I was very similar. I feel like I understand him when people say they don't. When people say they don't understand suicide, why people take their own life to that. I feel like I do, and I understand him. It's very similar to me. Everybody knew this sort of thing, and this is what I'm talking about. I mean, it's allowing them to be their own person as well. But when they act up, they say the squeakiest wheel gets the most oil, don't they? So if you've got 4 kids and one's like naturally plays up all the time and is boisterous, when you react to that sort of behaviour, when it gets a bit overhand, it's all right, it's fun at sometimes, but then it gets a little bit too much, and then you go down and you start telling your children off because they might be upsetting somebody. And if we're not careful, I think we can encourage that behaviour a little bit too much as parents. And it's not to say you don't have a bit of fun, but it's where does that sort of, and it's with men, where does banter end sort of thing as well. So don't we overemphasize, I think, on praising sort of behaviour that can get out of hand, and we overemphasize it and play up to it, and people we like attention, we like to be liked. So every single one of us want to be liked in some way. Do you know what I mean? And appreciated. And so
there's something about limit setting.
Yeah, it's bear with me because I'm thinking about this very sort of. I think one might say potentially it's quite an important message. So for me to We don't. I don't think we're praising enough the good behaviour, and this is it. We like bad news, don't we, and stuff like that. It's all over. We've created dramas, so I don't think we're praising enough that, and we need to be that example. I think as parents, we need to be that example more. Don't think you need to mould your child's life. Do you know what I mean? You concentrate more on you being a better person, because you will inspire people that way. They will want to be that better person themselves. When they see you, it's all learned behaviour, isn't it? You know, being a psychiatrist, we learn, don't we, from each other. We're social creatures. So it's all the learned behaviour. So I wish I'd understood how to love myself more and have that compassion for myself. So Jake could see that he could have it for himself. I'm not angry at Jake in any way with what he's done. What I'm angry at is, for one split second, he thought the world would be a better place without him.
Yeah.
And I wish I could have shown him more. But I love him myself more, really.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No, it's, as I've said, I am very grateful that you've taken time to share this message. So there's something you're saying about role modeling, and role modeling that, like a lot of us have a very harsh negative voice in our own head. And if we are loving ourselves a little bit more, showing ourselves more self-compassion, our children would learn the same thing. So I guess a message John Bell 2024 would like to give to John Bell 2020 before Jake passed away is perhaps taking time to show self-compassion towards oneself. Of course, there's benefits for yourself, but also for your children, because they learn that it's okay to take time for yourself. It's okay to be kind towards yourself.
And there's a difference between that and self-importance, isn't there? Having having that self-importance becomes arrogant, don't it? And this comes back to sort of the male ego, really. Well, the ego in general, not just the male ego. And I, because of my background and things, and I took up bodybuilding, I was very involved in that side of the ego sort of thing, and it was a different type of love. It's a false love, isn't it? When you think about it, it's the vanity, isn't it, as well? And I didn't truly feel it here. I feel it now because how can a father turn around and say that they feel like the son has given them a gift? Do you know what I mean? Because I'm not sort of, suicide is not the answer, guys. Suicide is really not the answer at all. We need to own in on that love and compassion massively for each other, for ourselves and for each other.
Okay, so that's one incredibly powerful message. And it just reminds me of a recent podcast that we did with Stan Standel on compassion-focused therapy. And he kind of talks about the three forces, kind of the threat, the drive, and the kind of self-soothing. And I think what John has done is given a very powerful message about learning those skills that we need to self-soothe and kind of just tone down that harsh voice that can rise, because we as adults are always on display and our children are learning from us. And if we can't be kind and compassionate towards our own self, our children don't learn to be kind and compassionate towards themselves. And that compassion is actually protective against things like suicide, because you are kinder to yourself. So that's a very, very powerful message. Now let's consider a message that John Bell 2024 would like to give to John Bell 2020 after Jake passed away. What might that message be when you went kind of soul searching, almost made peace with your, if I were not to exist tomorrow, that's okay. In that headspace when you were there, now with the benefit of hindsight, what message might you give John Bell 2020 after Jake passed away?
Wow. Don't stop this path you're going on. Basically, the path, the hurt, the pain, the suffering, the thoughts of suicide daily that I had to deal with on, and this is personally obviously the message to myself. I had to go through that to get to where I am now. And I wouldn't. It's difficult. Well, it's not difficult for me to say, but it's difficult for probably people to hear this who are parents. That the fact is, what has happened there, for what I've had to do, I wouldn't change that at all. The only thing I would change is obviously it not bloody happening in the first place, and my son still being here.
Yeah.
But that's logically and being really, I'm a realist. You know what I mean? It's never going to happen. So I've got to think about what I've been presented with now and what I do from this. What actions and what am I going to do now to see how to live again, and it's important to live again and experience that joy, and I experience that much joy because I've put myself through the mills, so to speak. And I think I did. I think I purposely put myself through the mills. I needed to challenge my own demons, and I needed to find a way to survive. It was like a natural survival instinct. There's something comes from something so primal. Do you know what I mean? So I'd just say carry on this path. Don't give up on yourself.
Yeah.
And don't give up on yourself. Do you know what I mean?
Because the way you have been speaking, it reminds me of, sometimes we get very focused on how long will it take. And you mentioned 4 years on, you're still rebuilding, right? You're still rebuilding, you're still growing. How long will it take? And it sounds like you kind of changed it from how long will it take to how far can I go? And you are pushing the envelope of what you can do physically, what you can do mentally, in terms of challenging yourself, pushing yourself all the time, in terms of kind of shifting that growth equation for yourself, because it will take whatever time it takes, but that whole idea of how far I can go, that just comes out in spades, talking to you. And like a 15 kg bathtub walking on plain surface is bad enough, like my knees would buckle. Just putting it on my shoulder, walking up mountains and doing laps around and around forests and going up Ben Nevis and Snowdonia and things like that. It's like it almost sounds like, how far can I go? How far can I push myself? What message would you like to give to healthcare professionals who are kind of the primary audience of this podcast, really? And a lot of them, there are two groups of people who work in mental health: those who have lost someone to suicide and those who are going to lose someone. It's just a sad reality of the kind of work that we do. It's work that is really rewarding when we are able to help someone heal and recover. But the reality is that despite all our best efforts, every now and then something does go wrong and we lose someone. Would there be a message that you would like to give to people who are in caring profession, who might have or who may end up losing someone to suicide while caring for people?
I mean there's quite a lot of factors there, isn't there? You're saying professionals, and then in general as well to people who are caring for people, and that is two totally different things here. But I think do you know what? I'm going to utilise this question, what you just told me though, to highlight the factor about professionals as well, because I do have a very good friend who he does talks in the NHS. He's worked in the NHS all his life, and he lost his son as well, and within medical professions, the suicide rate is really high. It's one of the highest, isn't it?
Yeah.
And a reason being, an article went out up in Scotland not long back, that the amount of complaints that come in because people sort of expect sort of doctors to be able to fix them and things like that. You're just human beings that go into your own problems as well. And it's so it's what support that you guys get. And I know there'll be some things in place, but you're listening to so many other people's problems, and that can have an adverse effect. So I think to make sure for the medical professionals that they are getting the support that they need to be able to support these guys as well, not to put too much pressure on themselves, is massively important, because you can't fix people. You really can't fix people. People do have to go and do that themselves. All we can do is be there for each other and listen if someone does need a listening ear, and realizing that we all suffer as human beings. We're all in this together. We are all in this together, whether we choose to accept that or not. And it's, I think the suffering, I know I talk about the suffering quite a lot, but I think it's important because it's so easy for any single person to sit there and think, oh, God's sake, if I go listen to their problems, I can't deal with that sort of level of darkness. I've got my own going off, I've got this, and then you'll respond from a place that is not going to think. And I think, you know what? There's a quote here by, Dr. Wayne Dyer, late Dr. Wayne Dyer, died of the last decade. Have you heard the orange juice quote that he says, the phrase? So we cannot give what we haven't got. So this is why I think, I just think in general, having that compassion for yourself, and I know I keep coming back to this, I think that is such an important message. We cannot give what we haven't got. We really cannot give what we haven't got. So you take an orange and you squeeze an orange, you will always get orange juice. You will never get apple juice. Okay. If we're full of that much suffering and feeding this as well, and that much hate and everything outside of us is a fault. I feel like this because of everything out there, and that's the reason why, and blaming external factors. It's such a rut to fall in, and you see it more and more as time's going on, and as we're evolving as human beings. We see it so much. I think it's important.
Very powerful. We cannot give what we haven't got. And if you squeeze orange juice, you will never get apple juice.
So if you squeeze a person that is full of all this suffering, that's all that's going to come. That's all that's going to come out. So if you're cultivating loving kindness and you squeeze someone that's just cultivating love, all you're going to get is love. So if you can respond to hate with love at all times, if everybody thought like that, would that not be world peace? Realistically, it's not going to happen, but the more of us that do it, the more it can be a part of what we do. We develop that compassion. I just think the word compassion itself, having that for yourself, you naturally get it for other people. So despite, so as doctors, as professionals, as people struggling, people that have got family members or friends struggling, and you're on the receiving end of having to deal with that, and this is where they feel they're a burden. This is a double-edged sword. So they will know, they will be aware that you're feeling your own problems because they're in that much of a rut to feel that you don't want to be here anymore. Wow, that is, no one should have to feel like that. So we're all a part of the bigger picture. We need to learn more compassion for each other. I really think we do. And I think we're just, I don't know, it's sort of, it's up and down. You see it more with some youngsters nowadays, with how everybody's becoming more acceptable, with people wanting to identify as different sexualities and things. And then you hear the older generations, oh, there's only two sexes. Do you know what I mean? In the grand scheme of things, does it matter if that makes that person feel happy? They want to identify as something else that you're not used to. In the grand scheme of things, is it hurting you? No, it's not hurting you. Do you know what I mean? And and then you've got, there's such a double-edged sword with it, man. Such a double-edged sword.
So going back to that message that you, like, I personally know people who are working in emergency departments and A&E who on any given day have interacted with 3 or 4 people in suicidal distress, right? And you're often absorbing all of that. I guess the question that John's putting to all healthcare professionals is, how are you looking after yourself? Because if you're absorbing all of that and that's suffering is inside you and you are not healing in time, what are you actually giving to the next person you're listening to? Exactly. Because they are expecting kindness and compassion. And if you are full of suffering, because that's all that you're getting on a daily basis, and we have said this on the podcast a few times before, we can't pour from an empty cup. If you haven't got anything in there to pour, compassion fatigue is a very real thing. So John's sending out a plea to look after yourself, because in order to care for others, you need to care for yourself. And it's the same message around self-compassion as well.
On that note as well, people in your professions and other people that they're going to lose, but we are going to lose people. It's going to happen, and with suicide, it's that old, this never happens to me. Do you know what I mean? And until it does, it doesn't become your problem, and don't realise that you won't have any coping mechanisms in place to deal with that sort of thing. You have to build those coping mechanisms. Yeah. So I think a big important thing on the back end of that, Manan, is to also realise that if you do lose somebody as well, it's not your fault. It is not your fault. Okay. You know what I mean? We will blame ourselves enough. What could we have done more for that person? What could we have done more? It's not your fault, really isn't. Okay, they was in a place where they needed love more than anything.
Yeah, yeah. Because I remember the first time I lost a patient to suicide, it was 3 months after I had contact with the person. But I went through a very fine microscope, reading every word I had written in the notes. I'd written a couple of letters to the GP. I wrote every word, and I kept thinking, should I have done something else? Should I have seen this coming? Like you go into overdrive, and I know most healthcare professionals are like that because we feel responsible for things like this when something does happen in that way. But thank you so much for sharing that message of kindness and compassion to ourselves. And I think that that message is actually across all three messages you've given to John Bell 2020 before Jake passed away, John Bell 2020 after Jake passed away, and to all people in a caring role, whether you are an actual professional or you are caring for someone in your family, a loved one, a friend that you're caring for. I think that message kind of holds true. And also, if something does turn out bad, it's not your fault because we live life forwards. There's no way to mind read. There's no way to predict the future. And
That's all.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Can't believe again an hour has just whizzed by. So we will most probably be putting this in the podcast in a couple of weeks' time because there are some really powerful messages. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank Paul Vittles for connecting me to yourself. And the work like celebrities like Ryan Reynolds are doing in this to draw attention to this, I think that's worthy of recognition. And people can use their name and fame to support important causes like this. And Ryan Reynolds took the time to do that. So my heartfelt thanks to him as well.
It's not just him doing that. It's how he did it, how he went about it. I mean, he's in the limelight constantly. He's had a fourth child, Olin, which was back in February last year. And I didn't realise it was a big secret during the interview. So it's a good job I didn't say anything. The general public didn't know the sex of his latest child. And I obviously sort of dealing with what I'm dealing with. I'm not I don't start getting that involved with being a massive fan of somebody to the point there. And this is a problem where I said to Ryan right from the beginning, I don't expect things from anyone. If anything changes, don't feel bad about it and things like that. Do you know what I mean? Because can you imagine being under that sort of scope as well to the entire world like that, and the criticism from people that are struggling and doing the old Carl Jung rejecting inside themselves and projecting onto him. So, the amount of people I've had, he'll be getting good publicity from this. Ryan doesn't need any publicity at all. Do you know what I mean? Doesn't need any publicity. The amount of good him and Blake do as well is absolutely amazing. For him to take the time out to put into the interview and then announce to the world the sex of his fourth child being a boy because he's got 3 girls, to announce that to the entire world because everyone's been badgering about it and things at the same time as he introduced my son to the world, and it was all over the papers and things. It's just his timing was impeccable, and as I say, I've got too many people to thank. I feel bad that I forget people out. There's so many people that have contributed towards where we're at with the charity now and being able to support more people. But Ryan doing that, and absolutely, I've got so much respect for that guy, and absolutely amazing. And all his family. Have some good quality family time there, Ryan, with your family. Have some good quality family time after all the Deadpool promotions and everything. And everybody out there, just, do you know what? Take some time for yourself and go and spend some quality time and just live in that moment. Live in that moment. Give your family a big hug, big kiss. Tell them how much you love them. Live in that moment and appreciate who you are. Develop that self-worth so you can stay here longer to be that inspiration for your own family and for each other as well. I think that's so important. I really do. If you can't see the sunshine, guys, be the sunshine. And as one of the quotes is why you said it yourself, it's been a bit of an internet sensation with all the comments as well. show up, just keep showing up, put one foot in front of the other as well. All I have to do, guys, is just do that, put one foot in front of the other, but enjoy those steps and take a moment for yourself. I'll say thank you. Thank you for having me. Thank you for having me.
That's
Thank
John
you, Paul,
Bell,
for introducing us.
Walking for hope, putting one step in front of another, turning up, being there, enjoying the moment and finding peace in the moment. Thank you, John, for sharing all your knowledge, your wisdom, and your journey with us. You've been an absolute inspiration. And the message of hope that you've given through self-compassion and how we should be role modeling self-compassion for all our loved ones is so, so important, and something I will take away personally as well. Thank you so much for taking the time.
Thank you, man. Absolute pleasure.